Hello and welcome to World Civilization 2, and we are on chapter 37, China in the Age of Imperialism. We are going to look at a few pictures and then I'm going to lecture, so we're going to do like a PowerPoint. Okay, so let's go ahead and begin. The first thing you need to know about China is it really had a seclusion policy, kind of all of world history for China. And it had tributaries. It had like Korea as a tributary, Japan, Hong Kong. And if you wanted something from China, like its porcelain or its iron, which it had smelting, where you add oxygen to iron ore production, it had it 1,000 years before the Europeans did. What's amazing about Chinese history, and I had the most fantastic Chinese history professor at UC, Professor Man Bun Quan. He was absolutely eye-opening and amazing. But they actually had tons of technologies way before the Europeans did. And you know, this huge myth that they had gunpowder and fireworks but no guns is untrue. They've actually uncovered guns and that sort of things in China. So if you wanted to trade with China, you had to go through one of their kind of tributary countries. And they were kind of isolationists on purpose. And as we're seeing a pattern in European history is Europeans want to trade with you, and then they take you over. They take everything from you. They enslave your people, and then you're either kicked out. You know, the Europeans are either kicked out. People are murdered, mass, wars and takeovers, and that right. So for good reason, China didn't want Europeans to come in, and you'll find later in the story from your reading that they were right. Okay. So China in the Age of Imperialism. So the only group that has ever conquered China, and only for a few years, were the Mongols. And if you know anything about the Mongols, they are badasses. I mean, the Mongols are both terrifying and amazing at the same time. They had a larger empire than the British Empire, but they only had it for 90 years because they weren't good at governing. So the Chinese got the Mongols to get out, and that was Kublai Khan. They got him out. And they did have a seclusion kind of a policy. And really, China didn't need anything. They didn't want to trade with anyone because they didn't need anything. They only wanted silver. And, they would trade with silver through indirect avenues, through, Hong Kong, Japan, Taiwan, Indonesia, and that sort of thing. So as we are looking at this, I want to teach you a trick as well. The Qing dynasty, it looks like king, okay, Q-I-N-G. If you don't know how to pronounce something, you can always look on the web and Google it. And I just wanted to show you how I did that. So you just look up how to say Q-I-N-G dynasty. And it's really awesome, and it shows you YouTube, and then it will actually tell you. It's fantastic. Qing. So you say it Qing, even though it looks like king, it's actually Qing dynasty. Qing. So the other thing that I wanted to show you was there is a woman in here that we're going to see a picture of in a moment, and her name is the Empress Dowager Cixi, and it's spelled C-I-X-I, and you can look that up, and I did that earlier. And you simply type in, how do I say, in your little Google search, how do I say Cixi? C-I-X-I. And it's really cool because then it pulls it up right here. Very awesome.
Si Qi, Chinese Empress.
So I just wanted to teach you that little trick. Also, while you're in college, I would really behoove you to get the dictionary app, because the dictionary app, you can always hit the button and it will say how you say different words and pronounce them properly. So I wanted to show you that as well. So the first president, there's a picture, and his name is Sun Yat-sen, and he was the first president of China, and he really is a hero. I met some different Chinese students when I was at grad school at UC, and they really hold him up as a hero. But what was happening was there was seclusion, and the Western powers could not resist. They wanted to dominate China. They wanted to take it over. They wanted to trade. They needed more markets, so they were going to pry China's hands open and force them to trade. So you had the Opium Wars, which is actually like the dirtiest trick in history. All right, it's where the British East India Company developed a lucrative trade with Indian opium and smuggled it into South China. It was illegal, and the thing you need to understand about opium is it disables people. You know, you have this heroin epidemic, which absolutely breaks my heart. And they were smuggling in this opium, which completely disabled so many members of society. And it tells you in your chapter, and they did it on purpose so that they could take China over, 20 million deaths. It says on page 494, 20 million deaths. For the 20 years, the rebellion, the poverty-stricken peasants, and you know, this all the opium and the infighting and the Qing dynasty wanting to hang on. And it was Sun Yat-sen that actually liberated them, and he was actually their first president, and he was educated in Hawaii, and then he went back to China and was trying to really change it for democracy. Now, what you have to understand, there's something so amazing about China. They actually should have gone through the Industrial Revolution 700 to 1,000 years prior to Europe. And they had many inventions 700 to 1,000 years prior to Europe. But what happened is their overpopulation was out of control. And the overpopulation, they couldn't feed their people. And then technology and expanding and modernization just fell flat because they had to feed their people. Let's see, the outcome of all this weaponry and all these efforts to keep the opium wars out, or the opium wars, keeping opium out, led to one of the first of the unequal treaties. And these unequal treaties is when European countries came in and carved out pieces of China and took them over. Chinese people, if they have a hatred towards the West, it's for good reason. All right, they came in, they went around big cities and they carved it up, and they would make these parks that you can still see in like Shanghai and different places in China that say, you know, only whites allowed, no Chinese allowed. So they went into the Chinese country and made the Chinese go by British rule or by Russian rule or by Italian rule or French rule, and they marginalized and kicked out the Chinese and would not let them in certain parts of the city. It is absolutely preposterous if you do more research. So they carved it up, and we will see. Let's just take a look at that right now. Let's flip. All right, so here is a picture of Sun Yat-sen, and this is one of the first generals. His name is Chiang Kai-shek, and he was, you know, they were trying to set up a democracy, and then it kind of unraveled. Okay, then you have the Taiping Rebellion, and they're just trying to interfight between the Qing dynasty, and there were 20 million deaths. And then you have how it was carved up. Let me move my little person over here. Okay, and you can see Russia, the Japanese, okay, the British, the Germans, French, Italians, and the US actually came in as well and carved up pieces. Oops, sorry. Didn't mean to make you dizzy. Okay, here we have the beginnings of the Chinese nationalism, and this is Empress Dowager Qi, that we learned how to say her name. And she would not let go. She didn't care what happened to her country. She wouldn't let go of her powers. In the beginning of Chinese nationalism, they just wanted the foreigners out, and it was a terrible massacre. But their country had been overtaken. All right, so let's get back to lecture. Okay. All right, so the Chinese were forced to trade with the West. They did not want to, and they called them foreign devils, and they wanted them out. Russians, Germans, British, as well as Japanese trade extortions were forced on the Beijing officials. They did not want it. They already were isolationists, and they didn't want to be bothered. They wanted to be left alone. If you don't need anything from the rest of the world, you can say, no, I don't want to trade with you. You can. And going in there and forcing it was preposterous. So the Boxer Rebellion was very bloody, and it was China getting rid of the foreign devils and taking back their land is what it was. So forced trade. Okay. It's a fascinating, incredible story that I honestly did not hear until I was in grad school, which is super sad. So Sun Yat-sen was born in 1866 and he died in 1925, and he is considered the father of modern China. He was their first president, and it talks about in your book how he tried to modernize them, and he was tired of them being looked at as a backwards nation or underdeveloped nation, and he wanted to bring them into the new modern era. And he really loved China, and he is still seen as a hero in China. All right. And then you have the communist takeover in World War II and Mao Zedong, which is a fascinating story in itself. I took modern Chinese history, and it was fascinating. And I think we talk more about that later. So we'll catch you up with him and talk more about Mao Zedong. And honestly, the general who democratic forces were behind wouldn't listen and really wouldn't do what he was asked, and was a little bit too late. And that's pretty much why China went into communist hands and not democratic hands. And you also have to understand, we've talked about this before, the communism of Karl Marx is not the same as Chinese communism or Russian communism, all right? A lot of times they put communism and then they put a dictator in it. And that's not what Karl Marx, if you read his actual writings, that's not what he's looking for. But what we have to really identify here is that this takeover in Chinese imperialism was caused by extreme greed, all right, of capitalistic greed that had no limits, no boundaries, no rational, you can't go into a country and like chop it up and make parks where their own people are no longer allowed, and treat them as they're less human. This is just not something that you do. And so that capitalist greed led to a severe hatred of the West by the Chinese for quite some time. And that's why we talk about patriotic history. Patriotic history is one of your history words, and it says it's only looking at the history, the good things about a country. We can't do that. That's a narcissistic view. You've got to look at both sides so that you don't repeat the pattern of bad behavior that was done in the past. And there's a reason why some countries really hate us, and we need to listen and research the history and the true facts as to why. Okay, so that's all for China in the age of imperialism. Have a great night.